What's going on, everyone? Welcome to VEVE Investments. I appreciate you tuning in. On today's episode, we're going to have one that's a little bit more faster paced. So we often talk about brands and IP that's on VEVE, but we haven't talked about brands and IP that are not on the app yet. So today's episode is dedicated to just that. We're going to talk about brands that I hope to see in the future on the VEVE app. So if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see in future episodes. Without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alright, so I've structured the video as follows. I've broken the video down into different categories. I mentioned a couple times on the channel now that, I compare VEVE to early day Amazon. Amazon started with just books. They began adding categories in a very similar way to what VEVE's doing, right? VEVE started with collectibles. They now have collectibles, comics, and artwork. And I'm sure in the future, they're going to have more than just those three. So I've broken it down into different categories that I could see on the VEVE app in the future. So the first one, music. Second, production, which accounts for TV and film. We have gaming, auto, which stands for automotive, not necessarily being a category, but just putting the brands that I talk about today within that category. And then we have others, so anything that falls outside of the four categories I just listed. So starting it off, let's discuss music. All right, so the first IP that I think of when it comes to musicians is Michael Jackson, the man himself. So of course, I'm sure everybody watching this video knows who Michael Jackson is. He's a global icon that will forever go down in our history books. He's one of the best-selling music artists of all time. He's estimated sales over 400 million records worldwide. And currently to this day, despite, unfortunately not being alive anymore, he has over 32 million monthly listeners on Spotify. Now, another big name that I would love to see on the VEVE app when it comes to music is Elvis Presley. Although I'm not, and some people might get mad at me for saying this, his music isn't necessarily my type of music, but I understand how big his name is. He's a rock and roll legend. His abilities to entertain was largely why he was so popular, right? One of a kind, makes him stand out from other rock legends. He's actually sold more than Michael Jackson, over 500 million records worldwide, and he currently has nearly 30 million monthly Spotify listeners. So those are going to be the main two when it comes to music for me that come to top of mind. I'm actually now thinking of Queen that I probably could have included on this list. But Michael Jackson and Elvis Presley are, they're going to have a little bit of an older fan base, not to, offend anyone, but the average user on VEVE is not in their 20s. They're in their 30s, 40s, or older, right? And those are the exact types of people that would have grown up listening to people like Elvis and Michael Jackson. All right, so next let's discuss production. So in the production category, we're going to discuss production companies, but also specific films as well. So in this case, we have Paramount, Sony Pictures, and 20th Century Fox. We already have big production companies like DreamWorks, Disney, Marvel. We have Pixar that's on the app already, but these would include some that aren't on the app. I do actually believe VEVE may have the license for Sony. I'm not sure if it's Sony as a general company or if it's a specific department of the business like Sony Pictures, but I believe I recall an interview that David had over in Australia where he mentioned the Sony license. So if I can find that, I'll put it up on screen for you guys. And then you guys are going to see movie titles on screen as well, and these are all movies that these production companies have released in their box offices. So we actually have some major films here: Titanic, Forrest Gump, right? Indiana Jones is a personal favorite of mine. Transformers is another one. Avatar, highest grossing film of all time. Terminator, Kung Fu Panda's on there. Kung Fu Panda actually VEVE has the license for already. I can confirm that, and I'll toss that on screen right now. But in terms of production companies, these three I would love to see on VEVE. It would give us access to a lot of other brands like the ones that you guys see on screen right now. So next we're going to discuss the Harry Potter series. So the Harry Potter series is the highest selling series of novels to ever exist. J.K. Rowling, the author behind Harry Potter, has sold at least 500 million copies of her book series, and the franchise has a cult-like following. So, similar to that of Pokemon, right, where there's millions of followers that will go where the brand goes, the same thing here with Harry Potter. Whatever happens with the brand or wherever the brand goes, there tends to be a lot of fans that follow. Now, similar to that of Harry Potter, let's talk Lord of the Rings. So, before the movies were ever made, they were actually the most read novel of the 20th century, all right? They sold over 100 million copies before the movies were ever made. And then when the first movies were actually made, it then became the most watched movie of the first decade of the 21st century. And then they would go on to sell another 50 million copies of the books within the next 2 years. So this is another brand that has amassed millions of followers. They have a very, very loyal fan base. And in terms of some of the IP that could actually drop on VeVe with this brand, we're talking the ring, we're talking Gollum, we're talking the big spiders, we're talking castles, ogres. The list goes, like, endless possibilities here. So this is definitely a brand I would love to see on the app. All right, so that's going to conclude production. Let's move over to gaming. So the first brand we're going to discuss here is going to be Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is one of the most popular anime in all of history. All right, it's gained popularity for the show's crazy battles. In Vice's words, Dragon Ball is the Iron Maiden of anime, and the franchise has fans that span across multiple generations. So this is a brand that's been discussed in the community for a little while now, especially when David was teasing that D word. You know, a lot of people thought it was going to be Dragon Ball Z, ended up being the Disney D logo, but you can see that there's a lot of people in the community already that would be excited for this brand. Next up is going to be an obvious one, and it's going to be one that's been teased a lot in the community and by the team, and that's going to be Pokemon. So Pokemon is one of the highest grossing media franchise of all time. Their video game series specifically is actually the third best selling video game franchise of all time. They have more than 440 million copies sold and 1 billion mobile downloads. Guys, having that B instead of the M is a big deal for a company. So 1 billion, God, that's a lot. But speaking of that, this is another brand that has a cult-like following, right? So wherever this brand goes, millions of fans tend to follow. So the moment, if, I'm just saying if Pokemon gets announced on VeVe, we will more than likely see an influx of users on the app. Now, similar to that, of Pokemon, we're going to discuss Yu-Gi-Oh! Here. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Is one that I'm actually a little bit more familiar with. So I grew up where, you know, Pokemon was still popular around me, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Was the game that I would play during recess at middle school with my friends and things like that. So this is the one that I have the most memories with, and I'd love to see this one on VeVe. As of January 2021, the game is estimated to have sold about 35 billion cards worldwide. The brand has a fan base that spans across multiple generations, and just like Pokemon, the brand offers an anime series as well as a globally popular card game. David has mentioned in the past that they have acquired brands just as big as Pokemon. This is one that I would probably put up there. And in terms of, you know, what they could release on VeVe, they could release cards, they could release characters themselves, right? There's a lot of possibilities here. And in terms of the amount of characters and the amount of cards that this brand has, just like Pokemon, it's thousands. So lots of potential here, and I really, really hope to see this one in the future. Another one I really hope to see in the future is going to be Lego. So everyone knows how big this brand is. The brand is largely successful because of the design and system of play. It's extremely versatile, so you can really build what you want to build, provided that you're not building like a set. But in 2021, the Lego Group's revenue amounted to approximately 7.44 billion euros. I have no idea why I didn't convert that. One sec. 7.44 billion. All right, so that's going to be 10.77 billion Canadian. What is that American? One sec. Wait, what? Oh, yeah, that's right. Euro crashed. In American, that's going to be 7.91 billion. Wow, barely a difference, eh? Anyways, this is going to be another brand that has a fan base that spans across multiple generations. I know there are insane creations out there with Lego. I've actually seen a couple in person. I know there's a Lego part of one of the Disney parks that I went to years back, but they have some like life-size Lego creations, and the possibilities are insane. But again, the possibilities in terms of IP that they could release on the platform is endless. I mean, speaking of IP that you see on screen right now, you guys are looking at Spider-Man, Star Wars, and, you know, Disney's Pixar Buzz Lightyear. Those are all IP that are on VeVe already. So in terms of these brands collaborating, right, assuming that VeVe gets the Lego license, I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to go to Marvel and go, hey, do you want to do a drop with Lego? We can do this. Because it's just additional revenue for both the companies. So forget just your base, you know, Lego pieces, right? There's endless possibilities there that you can drop on VeVe. The branded IP partnerships that Lego has, a lot of the partnerships that they have are already on VeVe, which just provides additional opportunities. Next, we have another one that was teased in David Yu's background. That's going to be Hot Wheels. So Hot Wheels is a huge brand as well. Hot Wheels continues to be the #1 vehicle property in the US year after year. Since 1968, more than 4 billion Hot Wheels cars have been produced, and more than 41 million adults have grown up driving Hot Wheels. So I am one of those adults. I had a full case of Hot Wheels. In fact, actually multiple. It was like a little briefcase. You would unclip it, open it up, and it would have like a grid compartment inside for each one of my individual Hot Wheels. So, you know, I was a big fan of this brand growing up as well. And, you know, in terms of, again, possibilities with this one, endless. To this day, from my understanding, they're still producing new Hot Wheels. So in terms of the variations and models they can offer, again, endless possibilities here. All right, so that's 4 brands that I hope to have on the VEVE app in the future in the gaming category. So let's move on to the automotive category now. First one we're going to talk about is one that's been talked about in the past, and that's going to be Tesla. So, of course, Tesla is tied to Elon Musk. We also have SpaceX, which is another one of Elon Musk's companies. So the main reason I wanted to include these companies on the list is because of who's behind the brands, right? Elon Musk himself. Now, Musk has paved the way for electric vehicle innovation and also next-gen space exploration, developing the reusable rockets that land themselves. Insane. But Musk's goal, and he said it time and time again, is to get people excited about his products, right? Or in other words, the future, because all of his products pertain to the future. Musk himself has, I would probably argue, one of the biggest cult-like followings in the world, right down to like 18-year-old kids tracking his private jet and him offering $5,000 for the 18-year-old to stop doing it and blah, 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 blah. But if a brand like Tesla or a brand like SpaceX gets announced on VEVE, then, you know, my God, the potential is huge here. And you know, I want to be clear. I'm not sitting here and being like, oh, the future of VEVE success depends on Elon Musk. I'm like, no. I'm not one of those people that hold Dogecoin, my fingers crossed, hoping that he's going to tweet out something again that, you know, boosts the price of the coin. All that's done. This man provides true value, and if his actual companies are licensed on VEVE, that would be huge. All right, and the last 2 companies I want to talk about in the automotive category are going to be Ferrari and Porsche. So Ferrari on the left-hand side is, of course, going to be the main rival to Lamborghini, who's now officially signed with VEVE. Now, Ferrari's going to be forced to innovate faster because of competitors like Lamborghini. In my personal opinion, Lamborghini's always been a step ahead, or, you know, a little bit in front of Ferrari. But these 2 companies have always gone toe-to-toe. I mean, even as of recently, they've been spotted test driving each other's vehicles. So Ferrari has bought the newest Lamborghini, and Lamborghini has bought the newest Ferrari. And at their engineering sites where they're developing their new cars, they're seen test driving their competitors. So when we see Lamborghini getting into the NFT space, not necessarily understanding how they're going to utilize NFTs yet, right? Are they just going to be providing, you know, 3D models of their vehicles? Are they going to be providing fidgetals, right? So when somebody buys a Lamborghini, are they going to be getting a virtual version of their car? There's different avenues that they can take with it. And I'm curious to see what they do with it, because then people like Ferrari are going to react accordingly. On the right-hand side, we got Porsche. So Porsche is actually in the same auto group as Lamborghini. Porsche is owned by the Volkswagen Group. Lamborghini is owned by Audi. Audi is owned by the Volkswagen Group. So they're all in that same family, if you want to call it that. But in addition to others in that group, like Audi and Bentley, I think Porsche has a very, very loyal fan base. And again, in my opinion, I think that Porsche is a great example of a brand that's very good at innovating themselves. So with me being a car guy, I would absolutely love to see a brand like Porsche on VEVE. All right, that's going to conclude automotive. Now let's move on to the last category, which is going to be other. So anything that falls out of the 4 previous categories we just discussed. So the first one we're going to talk about here is going to be Hello Kitty. For those who don't know, Hello Kitty is going to be the #2 highest money-making franchise in the world, pulling in nearly $80 billion worldwide. Now, I believe it's Recur that already has Hello Kitty as IP on their platform, but having Hello Kitty on the VEVE app would be amazing. This brand is absolutely huge. She's a global icon, over 50,000 products, including licensed characters, books, and video games about the character. But this brand is more popular over in the East than it is the West. So I describe it very similar to that of Pokemon. Everybody's heard the brand, everybody knows it. But over in Asian countries like Japan, for example, you know, brands like these are on a whole other level. It's a whole other lifestyle over there. So I think when we talk about VEVE tapping into the Eastern market, I think introducing a brand like this, if they have a licensed agreement signed with them, is going to bring millions of fans from those markets. Next up, we're going to talk about Nintendo. So actually, now that I think about it, I probably could have included this in gaming. A little bit more appropriate, but whatever. And as you guys can see on screen, some of the IP or brands associated with Nintendo. So we got Pokemon, we got Zelda, we got Donkey Kong, Yoshi, Kirby, Animal Crossing, and of course Super Mario. And these are just going to be some, of course, many different iterations of Super Mario as well. We got Super Mario Karts, Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Kart has multiple characters, Yoshi being one of them, but you also have characters like Mario, Luigi, Bowser, and so on and so forth. They did also just release their new trailer for their upcoming movie, which looked amazing. But nevertheless, this is another brand that reminds me kind of similar to that of Marvel, where you sign a licensing agreement with a company that big, and then you have access to all of their characters and IP under their umbrella. Next, we're going to discuss Xbox. So Xbox, for those who don't know, is actually a company that Alcon has previous relations with. The Xbox Series X, which is actually their most recent version of their console, was Microsoft's most successful launch in its history. And similar to that of Nintendo, like I was just discussing with having multiple different types of IP under their umbrella, this would open access to a whole range of other IP as well. So IP including Halo, which is an Xbox exclusive, Forza, which is an Xbox exclusive, and then many, many more. Next, I want to talk about Shaquille O'Neal. So Shaquille O'Neal is an interesting one for me, okay? So obviously Shaquille O'Neal is regarded as one of the greatest basketball players and centers of all time. I'm sure everyone watching this knows his name. But for those who don't know, Shaq actually owns the rights to IP, including Elvis Presley and others like Marilyn Monroe.
I don't like to seem like I'm bragging, but I'm gonna ask you a question. Who owns Marilyn Monroe?
Playboy?
Who owns Elvis Presley? Who owns Forever 21? Who owns JCPenney? Me. My real business is I own 50 brands.
He's a pretty big entrepreneur himself. You know, he's made some large investments in companies like Google, Apple. He owns hundreds of Five Guys restaurants. And actually, now that I think of restaurants, he also owns Krispy Kreme, I believe. But the point is that he has experience investing. Now, speaking of investments, here's what Shaq said, and I quote, "I make investments not for the monetary reasons, but if it's going to change people's lives and if I see people enjoy doing it." The reason I included this quote, guys, is because there was actually something that popped up on Shaq's Instagram. It was earlier this year, and it reminded me a lot of VEVE. Now, disclaimer, this was not VEVE, but I'll toss it up on screen right now. He had a Spider-Man that was augmented into reality. Now, I say Spider-Man because that's clearly who it is, but if you look on the chest of the character, it doesn't actually have the Spider-Man logo. So that right there tells me that whoever made it did that for copyright reasons and that it didn't come from Marvel. But Shaq said that he invests in things that people enjoy, right? And, you know, I probably have the video still playing on screen. There's one thing that I really want to point out in this video. And you notice that he's not busy whatsoever. He's not doing anything. He's just sitting on the couch. But he's clearly enjoying playing around with the AR. Now, Shaq is a big kid, right? It's just his personality. You can see this come out in multiple videos across the web. But if an individual like Shaq got his hands on the VEVE app and then actively promoted VEVE, I'm silent for a reason. That's all I'm saying. Next, let's talk about Sotheby's. So I think this would be a very, very interesting partnership if this was possible. We've had Alcon mention multiple times in the past that he would love to see very high-end art. And what you're looking at on screen is the middleman in order to provide that art. So Sotheby's is the oldest and largest internationally recognized firm of fine art auctioneers in the world. The company's annual worldwide sales are currently in excess of $7 billion, okay? They're the one responsible for the Banksy painting Shredding Live, as you guys can see from the photo on the right. But they were actually also the first auction house to successfully shift to a hybrid digital auction format and create new mobile and web experiences to drive a much larger portion of sales online. So they're innovative, which is exactly what VEVE is doing. Obviously, VEVE already has the auction feature. They're already doing the one-of-one auctions. But imagine in the future having a partner like Sotheby's and VEVE being able to auction off art worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Again, none of this is confirmation, guys. These are all brands that I just hope to see in the future, but it's definitely something exciting to think about. Now, speaking of another exciting one to think about, this one might be a little far-fetched, but I'm a watch guy myself, and Rolex would be absolutely incredible to have on VEVE. Rolex currently has unprecedented demand. Like right now, not even the royal family is able to jump the line, and that was actually a very, very recent news article. But more importantly, Rolex watches are seen as a universal token of success across cultures and industries. I think of this in a similar way to the Lamborghini examples I used earlier on in the video, and that is how Lamborghini could possibly be doing phygitals, where if you purchase one of their cars, you get a virtual version of the car that you just purchased. Same exact thing here with Rolex, where if you buy one of their watches, you could get a virtual version of the watch that you just bought. Pure speculation. Having a company as huge as Rolex that is clearly leading the industry would be awesome. And of course, being able to augment some Rolex watches into the room would be pretty cool as well. Now, sticking with the luxury brands here, we're going to talk about Louis Vuitton. So we already have Givenchy on the VEVE app, and that's because of the collaboration that they did with Rewind Collective and Amar Singh. But Louis Vuitton is the most valuable luxury brand in the world, okay? The brand keeps on inventing itself and is successful because it adapts to the needs of its customers. So as NFTs become more and more mainstream, what do you think the likelihood is of brands like this that are already innovative to take advantage of growing trends like that? Now, judging from what Amar Singh said several months back, I'd assume that Louis Vuitton is already signed with Rewind Collective. That is an assumption, pure speculation. That is not confirmation. But the reason I say that is because Amar Singh did say that Rewind Collective has over 50 signed licensing agreements with some of the world's largest luxury brands, and he said that several months ago. So in addition to Givenchy that's already on the VEVE app, I'm sure we're going to see other luxury brands dropping through partnerships with Rewind Collective. And last but not least, guys, in this category, we're going to talk about Walmart. Now, I was actually going to include Amazon on this list. The reason I didn't is because I was kind of looking at their history and I was like, well, if Amazon works with another company, they don't really work with the other company. They really just kind of buy them out. So that's that. But I want to talk about Walmart because David has mentioned physicals, and he actually mentioned that they're coming in 2023 with some of their licensors. So Walmart's global stores achieve an annual growth rate of 35% roughly, okay? The average profits of the company are estimated to be around $1.8 million per hour. So we discussed this a little bit more in depth back in episode 22, but we talked about the promo code feature on VEVE and how promo codes could be used to pair physicals with digitals. So imagine licensors on VEVE offer physical versions of the digital versions they drop on VEVE, and then in store, when you go to buy the physicals, they have a promo code that'll allow you to redeem the digital. In this case, the store that I think about is Walmart. Walmart, of course, would be the biggest one, and having Walmart as a signed partner would just open huge opportunities. All right, so that's going to conclude all the brands in today's episode. Guys, of course, there's many more that I would like to see on the app. I can't include them all in one video, but if there's any that you guys are thinking of that I didn't discuss in this video, make sure to comment them down below. Just to summarize the video, moving from left to right, we discussed Elvis, Michael Jackson, we discussed Sony Pictures, Paramount Pictures, 20th Century Fox, Lord of the Rings, Dragon Ball Z, and Harry Potter. We discussed Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Lego, Hot Wheels, Tesla, Porsche, and Ferrari. And we discussed SpaceX, Louis Vuitton, Hello Kitty, Shaquille O'Neal, Xbox, Rolex, Walmart, Nintendo, and last but not least, Sotheby's auction. That's going to conclude episode 32 of VEVE Investments, guys. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you guys want to see in future episodes. And as for our next one, I'll catch you then.